"We didn't order for your son," my sister said with a sweet, artificial smile, sliding a dry bread basket toward my 8-year-old boy while her own children dug into premium 12-ounce filet mignons. My father didn't even look up from his plate. He just casually added, "You should have packed him something, dear. Budgeting is important." Every single grandchild at the table had a $120 steak pre-ordered for them, except my son. I watched my boy swallow his tears, shrink into his chair, and hand back the empty roll. I didn't scream. I didn't make a scene. I just looked my sister in the eye, took a deep breath, and quietly said, "Noted." They thought I was defeated. They thought I was just the quiet, single mom who would swallow her pride. But 2 weeks later, at my father's 60th anniversary celebration, "noted" took on a whole new meaning. My name is Rachel. I'm 34 years old, and for as long as I can remember, love in my family wasn't given freely. It was weighed, measured, and assigned a dollar value. My father built his wealth as a sharp, unapologetic corporate accountant. To him, everything was a transaction. And in his eyes, my older sister, Vanessa, and my brother, Julian, were his high-yield investments. Vanessa was the glamorous real estate agent who married into money, and Julian was the corporate lawyer who never missed a chance to stroke Dad's ego. They could do no wrong. Every achievement of theirs was celebrated with lavish dinners, expensive vacations, and endless praise. Then there was me, a single mother working 45 hours a week as a graphic designer just to give my 8-year-old son, Leo, a stable, happy life. Leo is a sweet, gentle boy who adores his grandfather. But in my father's eyes, my life decisions made me a bad investment. Because I didn't choose a wealthy spouse or a corporate title, Dad treated Leo like a second-class citizen. At family gatherings, Vanessa's 2 children and Julian's daughter were showered with designer clothes, high-tech gadgets, and glowing affection. Leo? He was lucky if Dad remembered his birthday with a generic card. I tolerated the subtle snubs for years, convincing myself that maintaining family peace was worth it for Leo. I had no idea how far their cruelty would go until one Friday evening at the most exclusive steakhouse in the city. It was a cold Friday evening when the family gathered at the Prime Cut, an elite downtown steakhouse. My father had organized the dinner to celebrate a major personal milestone. He made it very clear that he had personally handled all the reservations and pre-ordered the main courses for everyone to ensure perfection. We all sat down at the large, candlelit mahogany table. The waiter stepped up to the table carrying a tray of sizzling, prime 12-ounce dry-aged filet mignons, each priced at $120. One by one, he placed a plate in front of Vanessa's 2 children, then Julian's daughter, and then the adults. When the waiter reached Leo, he set down a plain wire basket filled with cold, dry bread rolls. Leo looked down at the basket, then at his cousin's plates, his large brown eyes filling with confusion. "Mom," he whispered softly, "where is mine?" I turned to the waiter, but before I could open my mouth, Vanessa cut in with a sickeningly sweet smile. "Oh, we didn't order for your son," she said, sliding the bread basket closer to Leo. "The pre-order head count was very specific, Rachel. We just didn't think he'd care for high-end meat." I felt my blood run cold. "He's 8 years old, Vanessa. Everyone else's child has a full meal." I looked at my father, expecting him to fix it. Instead, he didn't even lift his eyes from his plate. He just calmly sliced into a steak and said, "You should have packed him something, dear. Budgeting is important, and extras weren't in the plan tonight." I watched Leo swallow his tears and quietly push his plate away. I didn't scream. I just said, "Noted." Then, I ordered Leo a full meal out of my own pocket. The humiliation at the steakhouse stayed with me for days, but I kept my promise to Leo that things would change. 4 days later, an opportunity landed right in my lap. My father called, asking me to come over to his house to help him sort through his mountain of monthly administrative mail, a tedious chore that neither Vanessa nor Julian ever offered to do. While my father took a phone call in the garden, I sat at his heavy oak desk in the study. As I organized the stack of envelopes, I noticed an unsealed manila folder labeled Whitaker Family Trust, Annual Disbursements. Curiosity took over. I pulled out the ledger inside, expecting to see standard administrative notes. Instead, what I found made my jaw drop. The trust had been set up years ago by my late mother with a clear mandate: equal financial support for all living grandchildren. Yet, looking at the itemized withdrawals over the last 3 years, hundreds of thousands of dollars had been funneled out of the account. Vanessa had claimed over $150,000 for specialized private tutoring and sports academies for her kids. Julian had withdrawn $120,000 for equestrian therapy and elite summer camps. Every single expense had been rubber-stamped by my father without a second glance. Then I flipped to Leo's page. It was practically blank, except for a single-line item from 2 years ago: $150 for a basic orthopedic shoe fitting after an ankle injury. Worse still, looking closely at the recent authorization receipts, several signatures approving extra educational grants for Vanessa's kids didn't match my father's handwriting at all. Vanessa and Julian weren't just taking advantage of Dad's favoritism. They were actively skimming the trust and forging approvals while treating my son like a beggar over a $120 stake. I didn't confront them right then. Anger makes people loud, but strategy makes them powerful. Instead, I quietly snapped high-resolution photos of every single ledger page, forged receipt, and bank statement before sliding the folder back into my father's desk. The very next morning, I took the evidence to an independent estate attorney and a forensic accountant. Within 48 hours, they confirmed what I suspected. Vanessa and Julian's systematic skimming amounted to grand larceny and fraud against the trust. During our meeting, my attorney pointed out a crucial detail. In less than 2 weeks, my father was hosting his grand 60th milestone anniversary celebration, a black-tie gala with over 40 guests, including family, high-profile colleagues, and business associates. My father had already announced that during the gala, he intended to officially sign over full, sole administrative control of the family trust to Vanessa. If he signed those papers, Vanessa and Julian would have total immunity to wipe the trust clean, leaving Leo completely cut out forever. I knew I had one chance to stop it. I didn't just want my son's fair share restored. I wanted my father, my sister, and my brother to face the full weight of their arrogance in front of everyone they tried so hard to impress. Over the next 10 days, I worked closely with my legal team to assemble 3 identical, professionally bound dossiers. Every page was a ticking time bomb, waiting for the perfect moment to explode. The night of the gala arrived. The ballroom at the Grand Oak Manor was dazzling, filled with crystal chandeliers, champagne towers, and over 40 of my father's wealthiest friends and business partners. Everyone was dressed in formal black tie attire, laughing and sipping wine while waiters circled the room with silver trays of expensive hors d'oeuvres. My father stood near the front stage, glowing with pride in his tailored tuxedo. Beside him stood Vanessa and Julian, beaming like royalty, socializing with guests and soaking in the admiration. Vanessa was practically floating in a floor-length emerald dress, acting like the dutiful, perfect daughter who managed everything effortlessly. At 8 o'clock, my father stepped up to the podium and tapped his glass. The room fell quiet. He spoke warmly about his career, his legacy, and the importance of family unity. Then, his voice grew emotionally heavy. Tonight, as I celebrate 60 years, I want to ensure my legacy is in safe hands. My late wife and I built a trust for our grandchildren. Tonight, I am officially handing over full administrative control of the Whitaker Family Trust to my eldest daughter, Vanessa, who has shown unwavering integrity and love for this family. The room burst into applause. Vanessa stepped up, taking the microphone, wiping away a fake tear. "Thank you, Dad," she said, her voice echoing through the speakers. "Family is everything to me. Equity, fairness, and protecting our children's futures. That is the sacred trust one promised to keep." I sat at a table near the side, my hand resting on a sleek black leather folder in my lap. I waited until the applause died down completely. Then, I stood up from my chair and walked calmly toward the podium. I didn't rush. I didn't raise my voice. I held the microphone that sat on the side table, looked my father directly in the eye, and said, "Dad, before you sign those papers, I have a very special milestone gift for you, Vanessa and Julian." a gift that honors your true commitment to family. I stepped into the spotlight and handed 3 identical, beautifully bound black folders to my father, Vanessa, and Julian. "What is this, Rachel?" my father asked, his brow furrowing as the guests looked on with polite curiosity. "Consider it an itemized audit of your legacy," I said smoothly into the microphone, my voice carrying clearly across the silent ballroom. "Open them." Vanessa opened her folder first, expecting a sentimental photo album. Instead, her color drained completely, leaving her face as white as paper. On the very first page was an enlarged copy of the $120 steakhouse receipt from 2 weeks prior, highlighting the 6 pre-ordered filet mignons for her kids and Julian's, and the single bread basket assigned to my 8-year-old son, Leo. Beside it was a printed quote of my father's words, "Budgeting is important." Murmurs rippled through the audience as guests leaned in to see what was causing the scene. But I didn't stop there. "Turn to page 3, I instructed calmly. My father's hands shook as he turned the page. Spread out in stark detail were the forensic accounting reports detailing over $270,000 systematically drained from the grandchildren's trust over 3 years. Below the figures were high-resolution scans of forged authorization signatures matching Vanessa's handwriting, not my father's. Vanessa and Julian have been stealing from the trust while treating my son like a beggar over a $100 meal, I announced to the entire room. And Dad, while you were praising their unwavering integrity, they were preparing to clean out the rest of your legacy the moment you handed over control tonight. Julian panicked, dropping his glass, which shattered loudly on the parquet floor. "This is absurd. She's lying. Security, get her out of here." "Call security if you like," I replied, holding up my phone. "My attorney and a police detective are waiting right outside the lobby with a formal subpoena. Every guest in this room now knows the truth." The entire ballroom went dead quiet. Nobody moved. My father fell back into his chair, staring at his favorite children in absolute horror as their golden facade crumbled to dust. I didn't stick around to watch the rest of the night implode. I set the microphone down, gathered my coat, and walked out of the Grand Oak Manor with my head held high. The fallout was swift and devastating. My father immediately froze the family trust, revoked Vanessa's administrative rights, and hired an independent firm to launch a full audit. Facing mountain loads of evidence, Vanessa and Julian were forced to sign legal agreements to repay every stolen cent under threat of criminal prosecution. Their lavish lifestyles vanished overnight. My father tried to apologize, leaving tearful voicemails begging for forgiveness. But I realized I didn't need his validation or his money to give my son a good life. I officially severed ties, choosing peace over toxic family politics. Today, Leo and I live in a beautiful home filled with laughter, love, and respect. I taught my son that his